I'm Eloise Reyes. I'm the Assembly member representing the 47th Assembly District, which includes the communities in the cities of Fontana, Rialto, San Bernardino, Colton, Grand Terrace, and the unincorporated areas of Muscoy and Bloomington. I want to thank all of you for joining us, especially our panelists. Before we begin, I want to tell you that this is our third annual Bridge Conference. We've had it every year since I was elected. We were supposed to have it in March, but we postponed it because of COVID-19. And because of COVID-19, it gives us the very basis for today's town hall. I think today's town hall is unique in the sense that it's an opportunity for us to come together in light of our differences. The bridge that is built on the values of equity, love, and respect is a bridge that will be strong enough to carry our collective voices over any obstacles. I do want to highlight something that we did when we first had our Interfaith conference, and that is that we introduced legislation, and it was passed and has been signed by the governor. That's Assembly Concurrent Resolution number 181, which proclaims the second week of March each year as Interfaith Awareness Week to celebrate the rich culture, the community benefit, and the spirit of interfaith associations and interfaith dialogue. I want you to know that my staff has worked tirelessly to ensure that this event is held every year. We understand the importance of faith-based leaders and their roles as pillars of the community. We want to continue to build community. We want to celebrate our differences, and we want to bridge the gap between community, church or synagogue or mosque or temple, with the community and with the elected officials. So without any further ado, I want to welcome you all to the virtual bridge. Joining me today are friends of mine. These are all people that I consider my friends, people that are working in the community to make sure that everyone in the community is taken care of, whether it's by providing food or finding shelter or giving those virtual hugs or praying for one another. Joining me today is Rabbi Cohn. Rabbi Hillel Cohn served as Rabbi of Congregation Manuel in San Bernardino from 1963 to 2001. He returned to lead the congregation for the 2014-2015 year of transition to new rabbinic leadership. Upon his retirement in 2001, he was named Rabbi Emeritus of Congregation Emmanuel. Good morning, Rabbi Cohn. So good to see you. Next, we have Reverend Samuel Casey. Pastor Samuel J. Casey, along with his wife, Pastor Tamika, is the co-founding pastor of New Life Christian Church in Fontana. Pastor Sam Casey began his ministry 20 years ago. He serves as the executive director of Congregations Organized for Prophetic Engagement, or COPE, whose mission is to build the capacity of clergy and place leaders in small to mid-sized congregations to participate in faith-based community organizing to protect and revitalize the communities in which they live, work, and worship. Good morning, Pastor Casey. Next is Brother Hussam Ayloush. Brother Ayloush is the executive director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE, and has been serving as executive director since 1998. He frequently lectures on Islam, media relations, civil rights, hate crimes, and international affairs pertaining to American Muslims. Good morning, Brother Ayloush. Next is Mr. Tahil Sharma. Tahil is an interfaith activist based in Los Angeles who was born to a Hindu father and a Sikh mother. Following the Oak Creek, Wisconsin shooting of a Sikh temple in 2000, Tahil became involved in efforts for interfaith literacy and social justice and has been doing his work passionately for the past 8 years. He currently serves as regional coordinator for North America for the United Religions Initiative. Good morning, Tahil.
Good morning.
Tahil was also one of those, before I move on to Rabbi Suzanne Singer, Tahil was one of those who worked with us at the very beginning to make sure that we put together the best bridge program. So for that, I'm very grateful to you, Tahil.
Thank you.
Next is Rabbi Suzanne Singer. Rabbi Singer joined Temple Beth El as rabbi and educator in February of 2008. As the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, she's keenly aware of the need to make our world a better place. She currently serves as a member of the Reform Movements Commission on Social Action and previously as a commissioner for the City of Riverside's Human Relations Commission. Good morning, Rabbi Singer.
Good morning.
Next is Reverend Bronica Martindale. Reverend Bronica is the Youth and Christian Arts Ministry Coordinator at New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. She serves as the Health Education Assistant for the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health Nutrition Program. She works to assist faith-based organizations throughout San Bernardino County to develop health ministry teams using the Body and Soul program. Good morning, Reverend Bronica. She's got it on mute, but that's okay.
Good morning. Good morning.
There she is. Next is Pastor Dane Aaker. Pastor Aaker is the senior pastor of Center Point Church in Colton. Pastor Aaker, or Dane, has pastored Center Point Church in Colton for over 30 years. He led the church through a difficult division, leaving only 89 members with a pastor who had heart and vision. Under his leadership, Center Point Church has experienced steady conversion growth and has become a multi-ethnic, multi-generational congregation. Until recently, the congregation of 1,400 met in 6 worship services in a church built in 1926 that seats 350. Good morning, Pastor Aaker.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And next we have Reverend Bonifacio Velascuez. Father Velasquez serves as pastor of Immaculate Conception Catholic Church, which was built by the pre-war and post-war immigrants as not only a church, but also as a school and a hall and a rectory and a convent. They may not have everything now, but that's the way it started. Immaculate has always been a close-knit family of parishioners looking out for one another. Father Bonifacio was ordained in 1995 in Guatemala, has a doctorate in canon law, is judicial vicar in the San Bernardino Diocese, and has been at Our Lady of Immaculate Conception for 8 years. Welcome, Father Velasquez.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And finally, we have Pastor Chuck Singleton. Pastor Chuck is the senior pastor at Loveland Church. Through Loveland Church, he has been privileged to train and disciple numerous men and women in ministry. He has served as a chaplain for the Los Angeles Dodgers, California Angels, and Oakland Raiders, and the Christian Entertainers Fellowship. Welcome, Pastor Singleton. Well, it's great to have all of you join us this morning. And before we get started, I do want to set some expectations for during our town hall, participants are, not the panelists, but the participants who have joined us today will be muted. My team has collected questions from the community for the past several days to ask our panelists. But however, if any of you at any time think of a question, write it down, email it to my office, and we will gather those questions and make sure we do get answers for you in the next few days. So let's get started. First, I think we'd like to hear some greetings from all of our panelists, and then we'll begin with our first question. So let's start with you, Rabbi Cohn.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you, Assemblywoman Reyes, for your pioneering work in the Assembly with your original initiative of a couple of years ago, and your great concern for bringing together the community and recognizing the diversity of our community. You are a true model for legislators in our state.
Thank you so much. My goodness. Pastor Casey, Sam Casey.
Good morning to the fantabulous 47th, Assemblymember Reyes. I echo the sentiments of Rabbi Cohn and just super excited to be a part of this panel and looking forward to being encouraged through this process. So good to see so many of you. Here's a virtual hug to all of you since we can't be with one another.
We feel it. We feel it. Thank you so much. Rabbi Suzanne Singer.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is my first Bridge meeting. Of course, I'm a fan of yours as well as everyone else here. And I just want to say that, you know, it's a difficult time for everybody. And I'm glad that we're able to bring together faith leaders who hopefully will provide people with some sense of comfort during this really challenging time.
Thank you. And I think that's been the message as we've talked beforehand. That has been the message. It's a message of encouragement. So thank you for being with us. It'll be the first of many, I'm sure. Reverend Bronica Martindale.
Good morning again to you, Assemblywoman Reyes. Thank you so much again. As you stated, this is my third annual time with the Bridge Conference, and I've always taken it as an honor and a privilege to give education, nutrition education, or to be able to speak definitely on faith. So welcome to our participants, and I'm honored to be here this morning.
It's great to have you for the third year. It's so good to have you. Tahil Sharma.
Good morning, Assembly Member, and good morning to everyone participating. I have always found it a privilege to walk step in step with the Assemblywoman in making this conference possible and getting to see the amazing folks that are in our communities doing the good work. So I joined that virtual hug session with all of our panelists and participants, and I look forward to doing so much more.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tahil. It's always great to have you leading with us. Pastor Dane Aaker.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This is my first Bridge meeting as well. And I just want to thank you. I appreciate how available you are for our community. You may remember one time I was visiting Sacramento and I just happened to come by your office and you invited me in. You wanted to know what was going on in our church and in our community. And I see you around town and appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Brother Hussam Ayloush.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I greet you with the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Peace be with you and upon you all. Such a great honor to be part of this group of bright, selfless, and uplifting people. And I want to really thank you, Assembly Member Reyes, for your leadership, for bringing us together. You know, we're social beings, and knowing and being reminded that we're not alone is such an important thing. So I look forward to being part of future Bridge events, and I look forward for today's session, hopefully to feel uplifted and inspired myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, you'll find that once we get you, we don't let you go. I think you can talk to Rabbi Cohn and Pastor Casey and Reverend Bronica. Once we get you, we Father Bonifacio Velascuez.
Okay, it's such a great privilege to be here with you, and I thank you for getting us together. And I feel you are here around me, and even I feel kind of nervous to be with you in this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, and I know that Father Velasquez, I know you have to leave for an emergency. I hope you'll come back after it, but I'm so glad you are here.
Thank you.
Has Pastor Singleton joined us? He has not. And when he comes, we want to be sure that we give him an opportunity to provide some greetings. But let's get right into the questions. As I mentioned earlier, we did receive quite a few questions from the community. And what I loved about the questions is that it really has to do with how we all work together. What do we need to do? What are the churches and the temples and the congregations and the mosques and what are you all doing for the community? But the community also saying, what can we do for you? So let's begin with the first question. And I'd like to ask this question of Father Bonifacio. So Father Bonifacio, the first question is, how are you addressing the needs of the congregation during the COVID-19 pandemic?
That's very, very challenging times. And oh my God, I think first of all, I have to work with me. First of all, I mean, with myself and to be calm and to be, I don't know, in some spiritual statement in order to help the others. But I guess I'm trying to do my best, especially using technologies and celebrating Mass every day in two languages. We have English and Spanish. And also our Facebook is working 24 hours a day, receiving intentions. And then even I'm here every day at my office, hearing the people. Some people have different issues, marriages issues, economic issues, and and then I'm trying to just not maybe to give solutions to their problems, but first of all, to listen to them, so I can feel how comfortable they feel after we have some talk. I don't know if I have to evolve or I mean, to include all what I'm doing, or there's a second question.
Well, I'll tell you what, Father Bonifacio, only because I get to be a witness to all of this. Every single Tuesday, what are you doing at the church?
Okay, so here we feel privileged, and I'm really blessed because I have a good team, good community. I'm blessed to have volunteers, and then every Tuesday we have a dinner hour. And also, because we cannot cook anymore because COVID-19, so now we give food away. And then every Tuesday, if you see a long line of cars around the block, is don't worry about this, because people are waiting to get some food from us, and we feel privileged to help the people. And before we start giving food away, I encourage my people, and I say, you are the hands of Jesus. You are the hands of our church, because you are giving, you are giving food away to the poor people. So if you remember, and I think this is universal work of mercy, is to feed to the poor. And then at least we are trying to do this every Tuesday. And once a month, once a month on Thursday, one Thursday a month, we also give food away. And then, and the same thing, you will see a long line, people coming and getting some food to take home. And basically, this we're doing this. The rest is only, it's spiritually. I don't know if I include everything.
I sincerely appreciate that, Father Bonifacio, because you do it every single Tuesday and then once a month on Thursday. Because the community knows they can come here every single Tuesday, the line is always so long, and you just take care of it in such a great way. I really appreciate it. I know that my friends from the mosque in Corona have been coming in and bringing bread to add to what the church gives. Community Action Partnership has been working in close partnership with you. These are the sorts of things that we want to see in the community. And in the end, the community is fed. And just as you said, Father Bonifacio, the spiritual feeding of the community. I know that the community looks to you. You not only speak English, but Spanish and Italian. And that helps because the community will have the feeding of their soul in their language. Thank you so very much. And thank you for joining us. Thank you. I'd like to ask Rabbi Cohn, we've been on lockdown now for a while, and now we get to go out, wear masks and the social distancing. Tell me, what have we learned?
Well, there are a number of things that we've learned, and certainly my colleagues who are leading congregations have learned a number of other things. But one of the things I think we've learned is we don't know everything. You know, in religious life, we talk about agnosticism, and I've often characterized my Jewish tradition as being reverent agnosticism, that we don't know everything about God, and we don't know everything about the world and the planet and so on. We're always discovering new things. That's a very humbling kind of awareness to have. The second thing is we've come amazingly far in technology, not just the technology that enabled two people to go to the moon and come back safely a couple of weeks ago, but just generally this amazing ability to Zoom and have a conference like this with probably more participants than we might have had in person-to-person relationships. The third thing is that I think I've learned, and I think my colleagues would agree, that we can never again take for granted the extraordinary gift of being together with family and friends and even strangers, that we have become aware more than we could possibly have come to be aware earlier of the undeniable power of small groups and of family clusters and community clusters. And we've also learned painfully, but truly, that we are one world. We're a small, interconnected, fragile, vulnerable planet. And that ought to remind us in the days when this is all over that we cannot resort to killing and war, that isolationism is not patriotic, but that we are part of an entire human community. We may have different beliefs, different faith concerns, and so on, but we are ultimately part of a human community. And a couple other things, and then I'll leave this, that heroes arise from the masses. The healthcare professionals, food distribution people, people making masks. It's just amazing what these times have done. Yes, we've seen people who have abused the privileges of these times, but by and large, heroes have arisen. And we also have learned that we need to confront more than we've ever done seriously before the entire issue of healthcare and how it's provided, to whom and for how much. An awareness that certain ethnicities, we were not aware of that before, perhaps have far greater mortality rates than others. This is something which we have become aware of, and it's a painful awareness. We need to keep that in mind. And finally, the thing that I would say is we've learned so far, and hopefully that lesson will stay with us, that there's a difference between wants and needs. There are things that we might want, but we've learned in this time that they aren't necessities. We need to establish that difference between those. That's what I think unites us in terms of faith communities. In various religions, what we share in common is an understanding that there are wants that are not necessities. There are necessities that we need to deal with for ourselves, for the oppressed, for the downtrodden, for the impoverished. Those are some of the lessons so far that I've learned.
It's a great lessons, and I hope that, as you said, that we don't forget the lessons that we're learning. One of the things you talked about was our heroes, and oftentimes when we look at who the heroes are, in so many instances, we just assume they're okay, but they're not okay. Our health workers need PPE. Those that are working in the nursing homes need PPEs. Our immigrants that are picking the crops need assistance. They need protection as well. So thank you so much for reminding us of that.
A quick footnote to that. For instance, I know of there's a Jewish school in Portland, Oregon, the Portland Jewish Academy. And during this pandemic, they organized their students and their students' families from home, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, middle school people, providing like 2,000, 3,000 lunches a day for people who are homeless. I'm telling you that because the person who coordinates that is my own daughter, who has emerged as a heroine in these times.
Well, that sure sounds like a proud Papa moment. Thank you. Thank you. Pastor Dane, tell us, how are you managing to lead your congregation calmly during this pandemic? And do you see any challenges to your leadership during this pandemic?
Okay, challenges. I'll come back to that here real quick. We're basically trying to do services that are positive and fill people with faith and hope and keep their eyes on the Lord. And, you know, there's a tendency for people to panic. So we're trying to do that in terms of just messages and an environment that creates that. I think the second thing that we're seeing is a lot of people are having mental health issues right now. I'm sure that's touched all of our churches. So providing resources in terms of counseling or talking. I love the father said he's in his office. Just the environment, we're letting our staff work at home, but I come into the office. So I'm here and a couple other key pastors. So if people come by or they call, we're able to minister to them and talk to them. I think just some other things we created, and I'm going to try to focus on some things that maybe are different than we've heard, because, you know, it might just kind of add to the discussion a bit. We took some money out of our savings as a church. We were able to do this, and we set aside a relief fund so that people can apply in our congregation. You know, you have people that attend your church, are part of your church for years. They've been faithful to give to your church. Well, this is a season of giving back. We looked at it that way. So there's an application process that goes to a committee. For example, a family in our church, they hadn't been able to afford their utility bills. We were able to pay those utility bills. A few funerals have coming up. We've been able to help with some of those costs, and so on. So we've had some food giveaways, not at all like Immaculate Conception. I mean, they're down there every day doing that. You guys are amazing. But we've had a couple of those. Just some other ways. I notice my time is running out here. I got my egg timer. Just a couple other quick things for our church.
I think I need one of those because I'm always talking. Sorry about that, Pastor Dane.
I ran out and got it because I forgot it. So we had, for example, for our Children's Smart, we usually have about 300 kids a weekend that come to church. We did a drive-through children's event where they could drive through, stay in their cars, but our staff and volunteers were out there giving away popsicles, giving away some at-home bags so the kids could go home and do some things like that. One more thing, and then I'll be quiet. We posted something online for essential workers, not just those who go to our church, but others, just to say thank you, where they could go to Starbucks. I don't understand how they do this, but it had a little code. They could show it. Starbucks billed our church for a free drink for them. So just a few kind of creative things out of the box that we've been trying to do to say, hey, it's a hard time. I know you're discouraged. I love what the father said about, I have to protect my own spirit because I'm a people person and I don't get to see people right now. And if I could just be so candid, every morning I wake up and I struggle with a heaviness that I have to fight through for the joy of the Lord, as it says in the Bible, to be my strength. Because if I don't have that joy of the Lord, how do I give that to others? So, okay.
Wow, thank you so much. I love what you do with the kids. I think at our next food giveaway, I'm going to make sure my staff has a little freezer with paletas so that we can hand out paletas. I love that. I love that. Let's see. Next question. And Reverend Bronica, why don't you join us with this one? What are some available resources that you know that can be useful for the community during the pandemic? I know we talked a little bit about some, but share with us some of the others.
Okay, well, with the pandemic, what it has done, it has forced us to recruit many organizations and to collaborate in order to address the needs of our community. So for those that can, please write this down as I provide a short resource list for the
community. And before you go on,
okay.
If you can't write them down, please know that we will post them. We're going to get all this information from Reverend Bronica. We know that she has a wealth of lists of resources.
Yes.
There's always somebody that we always turn to when we need help. So I'm sorry.
So with that being said, well, thank you. I just wrote down a couple of things that I thought that could be a good, quick resource. Definitely the community can access information and a plethora of resources by dialing 211. So that number you definitely want to keep under your belt. And going to sbcovid19.com/website. And with this website, you can see the dashboard illustration of COVID-19 cases and tests and positive results and other information related to the virus. The CDC, Center of Disease Control, the best practices for everyone and preventive actions to help prevent the spread of this unfortunate virus, COVID-19. Also with that website, we have the senior and community food distribution, the grab and go school meals for children and youth that is constantly, they're giving food to kids at some of our schools. They'll have a list of the schools, great plates for seniors, and meal and diaper distribution sites. All of that you can find at the sbcovid19.com/. You have the www.211.org, and this site assists with meals and grocery distribution and Meals on Wheels for seniors. And a lot of these, I just wanted to say, these resources is what the community is asking for, definitely. Our food distribution sites, as it was aforementioned, Community Action Partnership, San Bernardino County. We have also in the High Desert area, we don't want to leave them out, High Desert Food Collaborative. We have High Desert Second Chance. We have the Blessing Center in Redlands and the Inland Harvest, and they service San Bernardino and Redlands. And so the San Bernardino County Nutrition Program has also a food rescue collaborative group, and that one's led by Dr. Yin Yang, and the groups meet in Zoom, and they work on food insecurity. So we'll send out, as Assembly Member said, to all the attendees interested in like programs. And a couple of more, we have mental health resources. That is very important during these times right now. 24/7 access and referral helpline, and that number is 909-386-8256. Anyone that is unfortunately dealing with opioid addiction or any addictions at all, you can go to See Her Bloom organization. They have free resources for that. And last but not least, we wanted to talk about shelters, because some people are losing their homes, unfortunately, during these times. The Salvation Army is taking men and family and children, and their number is 909-888-4880. So I hope these resources can assist you and your congregation's needs, and know that assistance is available. However, you must reach out so resources can be provided. And with that, I yield the floor back.
Oh my goodness, we got to get you up in the legislature so you can take care of business, and then, what did you say, yield the floor back? She's a congressman in the making. I think what is important in what you're sharing is that you have to first ask, but we should remind them that if you see somebody else struggling, ask on their behalf as well, right?
Amen. Amen. You really do. And my mom used to always say, a closed mouth can't get fed. So you have to be able to speak and let people know what your need is.
Thank you so very much. And thanks for always being with us. I appreciate you. Appreciate you very much. Tahil, when we're talking about interfaith, let me see, where's my question for Tahil? Here it is. What are the responses from larger interfaith communities that you're noticing now specifically since COVID-19?
Thank you, Assembly Member. To be very honest, it's a very mixed bag. I've worked with about 90 different organizations in my capacity for the past 6 months. And I can tell you that I've seen everything from communities flourishing to communities falling apart. And it's a very real impact of what COVID has done to communities who've been trying to figure out what to do in the midst of physical isolation. It has stopped fundraising, it has stopped resources from being shared, and it has allowed, in many cases, injustice to flourish. And we have to deal with those realities in many cases, but there are stories of hope in all of it. There is an initiative in San Bernardino, in Santa Barbara County, called Showers of Blessing, that's run by several different faith organizations that provide hot showers to homeless communities. They were using churches and other faith community institutions to sort of host these showers that would be done once or twice a week. And unfortunately, because of the COVID mandate in the state of California, faith communities were shut down, so did those services. The community didn't know what to do, and they decided to go to the city. The city of Santa Barbara actually helped amplify their work by doubling the amount of work that they could do and actually multiplying the amount they were fundraising, which is telling me a lot about the ability of civil society faith community members and their collaboration with political officials to be able to actually do more for communities at large. And these are some of the stories that we can see also as locally as Southern California. I turn to the Sikh community, being Sikh myself, as being one of the leaders and forefront folks doing the hard work. The Khalsa Care Foundation has been making food for a pantry for the past 17 weeks because of COVID, and they've been able to give over 200,000 meals to thousands of people throughout Southern California in collaboration with the Los Angeles Department of Disability, with major entertainment institutions, and with families who have been in need since the beginning. And this is telling me three very important things. One, the temples of our sanctuaries may have closed, but God is still singing. Two, we are looking at this peak of a mountain that is hard to overcome, to walk up, but we're inching forward step by step by working with each other for justice. And third, I'm really not interested at looking at the light at the end of the tunnel anymore, because it's becoming very clear that our collaboration is illuminating this tunnel. We need to continue to amplify and strengthen communities across the board, not just to strengthen themselves, but to reach the hand across differences, to connect one another and actually push us forward for justice. And I'm seeing that more and more every day with all of the communities that I'm working with, but also in many of the leaders on this call. But most importantly, the people we can see, the participants, have a voice and have a role in all of this. And we want to make sure that we remind everyone on this call that you have a power to make the difference.
Your words are always words of wisdom. I can't believe you're as young as you are. From the first moment that I met you, Tahil, just to hear you, I just want to sit and just listen, because I'm glad that you have been selected as one of those leaders in our interfaith community organizations because of that voice. You bring a voice of calm, you bring a voice of wisdom, and but it's always been a voice of action as well. You've never been one to just sit around and talk about things. You've always been one who has been involved, have been at the forefront. So I appreciate you so much. Just as an aside, I also want to say that for years and years, I always thought it was pronounced Sikh, the Sikh community. And it wasn't until recently that I was schooled into recognizing that it's the Sikh community. And I know that they are, as a community, one of those that has provided more food than any other organization, and I sincerely appreciate that. Thank you, Tahil, for being with us. Rabbi Suzanne Singer, tell me, what is the best way to engage a congregation safely during COVID-19, during this pandemic?
Well, we've tried a number of different ways. Of course, we're doing Zoom services every week, and the high holidays are coming up, and they're primarily going to be on Zoom. What I like about Zoom is that you can see people's faces, and I think that's really important for our congregation because they're really missing each other. And another nice feature of Zoom is that you can do breakout groups, and I've started doing that during services where I will offer a little teaching and then ask people to answer questions for about 10 minutes. For the high holidays, we're also talking about trying to do a parking lot shofar service. So one of the things you do at the high holidays is you are supposed to hear the sound of the shofar, the ram's horn. And so in order to bring people together in person, We're going to try to do that in our parking lot. And for our children's service, we're going to do it outside on somebody's front lawn that has somebody who's got a really large front lawn, so that, again, people can sort of see each other, although, the risk is people are going to want to hug each other, of course. One of the things that I've also tried to do is make phone calls, and I've gotten also my board to make phone calls. So I think we're already on our third round of calls where we just check in with people and say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need anything? We've offered to go shopping for people who can't go to stores themselves, and we have a group of volunteers that is doing that. For the high holidays, we're going to also provide bags of goodies, including a mask, to people who tend to be isolated and shut in. I mean, I think this is the hardest, of course, for people who are living alone, who have nobody to even touch them. I mean, I even have a colleague, a rabbi, who said, nobody's touched her since March. I mean, that's really hard. It's hard enough just having, let's say, a spouse, a partner, a child, but not having anyone is really, really challenging. We're also offering people during the high holidays a chance to sign up to come into our sanctuary, which you see virtually behind me. So if somebody wants to come in and just spend a few minutes in the sanctuary, either with their family or by themselves, we're offering that option to them as well. I think one of the things that's certainly helped me, because I really relate to what Pastor Dane said about how hard it is for, us to keep positive and, trying to help other people without, feeling despair, is I have colleagues in Riverside who are pastors, and they're part of a church group, and they invited me to be part of that. And so we meet once a month, and that is incredibly helpful, because we can just be really open about, I'm feeling so frustrated. I think a lot of us are feeling overwhelmed because there's so much need out there, and we're having to do everything with technology that most of us were not familiar with before. And luckily my husband helps me with it, because otherwise I wouldn't know anything that I'm doing. Because that's another thing I've had to do, is learn the technology, and every week there's some new glitch. And so it's really helpful to have colleagues that you can, kind of share the frustrations with, and of course the joys, and some ideas too. And I also have rabbinic colleagues that we've gotten together on Zoom from different parts of the country to share, okay, what are you doing for the high holidays? How are you handling this? What technology are you using? How much of the service are you leaving in? How much are you leaving out? Because the services tend to be very long at the high holidays, and people don't want to sit for 3 hours in front of their computers. So I think, and of course, this kind of forum is really important as well, just to know that you're not alone out there and trying to deal with all of this. So really appreciate your invitation.
I really appreciate your being here, and I think that the lack of hugs, I think I look at everybody on this Zoom, we're all huggers. We greet people with hugs. That's the way, that's what we do, right? And not being able to do it. I know in a while I am going to ask Reverend Bronica to tell us a little bit about the alternative encouragements, alternatives to hugging. I'll ask her about that in just a moment. But
can I add one other thing that's really challenging, I think, for all of us, and that is that people in hospitals can't have visitors. And it's so hard for them, it's hard for their families. We can't go in. And then when someone dies, we also can't hug, and funerals are limited and all that. So that's all very challenging for them as well as for us.
I appreciate those nurses and other personnel in the hospitals and in the nursing homes who are willing to hold up a face screen so that families can say hello to their loved ones. With my uncle, before he passed from COVID, he had a great nurse who would allow us. He died 3 days after his birthday. So on his birthday, she allowed us to get together, and we all sang to him, and it was wonderful. But not every nurse, they're so busy, and we can't fault them with not being able to do it. But for those who do, what a blessing it is. What an absolute blessing. Thank you so much, Rabbi Singer. Brother Ayloush, tell us, how can the community support you and the other mosques during these uncertain times?
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. What a great honor being part of this very esteemed, very privileged. I feel very privileged being part of this group.
We're privileged to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're very kind, Assembly Member. I think the main thing is to remind ourselves that, you know, maybe in the first few weeks of COVID-19, a lot of it was far away news, like inconvenience, stay at home, some people not understanding why, you know, I'm safe. Now it's hitting home. I mean, actually, everybody I talk to knows people who were impacted heavily by COVID-19, either getting sick or losing a loved one, losing a job. So now it's a reality and it's hitting home, and it's different people deal with it differently. It's impacting people's mental health, spirituality, not just economically and all of that. All of these things are real things, but also spirituality. And I'm part of a community of faith like all of us here. So for me, the most important thing is keeping hope, keeping faith alive with people, letting them know that it is a challenge we're going through, but it's not the first time as Americans, as human beings, that we face challenges. As Rabbi Cohn said beautifully early on, we need to realize that we as human beings, we have the capacity of overcoming. You know, there are certain things we need to do. We need to remind ourselves about faith, which brings us hope, perseverance, because unless we have this perseverance, we cannot fight on. I mean, we have to fight on. We have to succeed. We have to overcome this challenge. The second thing is we need good leadership, because let's face it, I don't want to turn this political. We've seen what happens when we have bad leadership out there somewhere in DC. I'm not going to mention specifically a White House or anything else, right? And good leadership, good leadership begins here. Each one of you is a leader in your community. Of course, we're very blessed by your leadership, Assembly Member Reyes, but also the faith leaders. You have equal importance and impact on people, and you inspire your people every day. And your people does not only mean your congregation, by the way. I'm not Jewish, I'm not Christian, I'm not Hindu, I'm not Sikh, but you inspired me today. So continue to do that. Know that your community depends on you, and your community, again, is your congregation and the larger one. That's your good leadership. And it doesn't mean we're not sometimes weak and sometimes questioning things and sometimes struggling. That's actually a sign of good leadership, because we're real, we're authentic, as Pastor Dane said early on. The second thing I think we all can do is to come together. And I know it was said earlier, but I think it's worth repeating again, because in times of challenges, it is, I mean, I would say common practice sometimes, not the right thing. It's the animalistic aspect of us sometimes, is to kind of gather around my own, whatever that own is, me, my family, my tribe, my community. We need to resist that and focus on our humanistic and humane instinct, and that is to come together and realize we're all going to make it together, or we all fall together. And this, I know, sounds like a cliche, but the reality is we're as good as how each one of us is. So stress this message. We all have to stress this message that we're all in it together here.
Brother Hussam, you froze for a second. Can the rest of you hear us? Yes. I think that one of the things that Brother Ayloush has talked about is how important it is to all be together. And I think that, and I've heard this before, it's nothing that it is my wise words, but take care of yourself, make sure that you are doing well. But once you have secured yourself and your family, you then have to make sure that you expand to others around you, to make sure that others are also doing well. And sometimes people are struggling, and just because you're okay doesn't mean everybody else is okay. So I really appreciate having Brother Hussam Ayloush join us, and I know he'll come back in just a moment. Reverend Sam Casey, I know that you've been with us since we started this also 3 years ago.
Yes.
And some time ago, there you are, Brother Hussam Ayloush.
Sorry, I knew I should have mentioned the White House. I should have kept myself quiet.
Somebody was in charge of the audio video and took you off. I'm kidding. Absolutely. But leadership is important. And I'm glad that you mentioned the leadership of the faith-based community. That's the reason for this program, Bridge, is to make sure that we recognize that no group is going to work alone. In the end,
Exactly.
community to prosper, and it's going to be the faith-based community. It's going to be elected leadership. It's so many leaders and so many of us that have to come together if we want something good to come of it.
If I can add one thing, less than 30 seconds. Let's not forget about the most vulnerable, because it is easy. I know, I love the way Reverend Bronica said, you know, you have to open your mouth to be fed, right? Whatever. She said it much more beautifully than I'm saying it now. But also let's not forget, some people are too timid, too shy to ask for. So let's look for these people, the vulnerable people, elderly, sick, young people, people feeling lonely, people with mental health issues, people who have lost their jobs, but you know, they're not used to asking. So let's make sure we're not forgetting about them. Let's seek them so we can hopefully rise all together again.
I love that. Let's seek them, because you're right. We have to look for those who do need help and are too meek or feel unworthy. They may have been put down all their lives and they feel unworthy to be asking for any help, because one more time they're going to be judged. So you're absolutely correct in that. Pastor Casey, Again, I want to thank you for always being with us in every program that we do. Some years ago, you had worship in the park. It seems like it was almost in anticipation for COVID-19.
Yes.
Worship in your own church, right? So
absolutely.
Tell us, how are you doing your worship services, and how are you providing for people not only in your congregation, but in the community at large?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Assemblymember Reyes. Excited to be with all of you. And echo, I've learned so much just listening in and things that I'm going to steal and apply moving forward. We much like everyone else, we're streaming Facebook Live weekly, YouTube, we're streaming weekly, and providing service virtually through Zoom for our Bible studies. And beyond that, we've led several food distributions within the community in partnership with you one time, and looking forward to doing that again within the next month or so. Preparing, we've also did a food distribution with SEIU at the earlier part of this time when COVID first hit. One of the things that I'm most proud of that we've done as a congregation of congregations, and one that's coming up on August 30th, and that is leading a process for COVID-19 testing. So we've held testing at our local congregation, along with several other churches throughout the Inland Empire. And we're partnering again this come August 30th, Sunday, August 30th, with the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander community to host the testing specifically for that community at our local congregation, where we share with Juniper Street Seventh-day Adventist Church. So it's just been an exciting time, and I deeply echo what everyone has already said as it relates to really being a community at this time. I think we're finding the value of what it really means to be community.
Tell us about, I know that the food giveaway you did, and next is for the students. How do you come about doing that? So
we wanted to, at the beginning of this, not only do a food distribution specifically targeted for young people and their families, but really even provide some backpacks with school supplies, given that all school districts throughout the state of California, specifically in our community of Fontana and surrounding community, everyone's doing distance learning right now, and really didn't want students or families struggling for the necessary resources they're going to need it to support students and families in that process of distant learning, as well as even providing them food resources, given that many of them, someone mentioned it earlier, may not even mention their food insecurity just out of shame or embarrassment. So similar to when we partnered with you about a month ago, I think we fed over 300 to 500 families. Yes. No questions asked, just pop your trunk. We had a 53-foot trailer full of fresh produce and dairy and some meat products. Look, no questions asked. Don't fill out any documents. Don't show us no ID. Pop your trunk. We'll share a brief word of prayer with you if you so desire. We put food in your trunk, and you kept on pushing. But we really just want to be a resource to the community at this time, and preparing to do that in September again, as well as preparing for Thanksgiving and other opportunities that are afforded to us to partner with other ministries as well.
Thank you so much. I always enjoy partnering with you. And you're right. It's no questions asked, no paper to fill out. Pop your trunk, and there it is. We'll fill it with everything that we have. What we have, we're going to share.
Absolutely.
I also appreciated that at the very beginning, you did have one of the members of your congregation stop. She was the first stop, and she would say, "Is there anything you want me to pray with you on?" And some said no, maybe they felt uncomfortable, but many of them said yes. And I had the privilege of listening and joining in that prayer with many of those in our community, and the needs are real. I was mentioned
Indeed, they are.
The mental health issues. I had a text this morning asking about the PTSD as a result of what we're going through now, and it's real, and we've got to do more. Well, I see that Pastor Chuck Singleton is with us, and I just want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ask you a favor. Let me unmute you. Oh, I just muted you, my apologies. Pastor Singleton, let's see, unmute. We're looking for you, Pastor.
I think we.
There you are.
I think we got it.
Can you? Are you on your cell phone?
No, I'm on an iPad, but I have tried to change me. You guys are all sideways. What's the matter with y'all? But I've been trying to.
I told my staff, I sent him a text, tell him he's sideways. They said, we've already tried. So,
I'm at your service. Our representative, our assembly member, we appreciate your work. And I'm so glad for all the wonderful things you said about those of us on the call. But thank you for your work, both locally and in Sacramento. We appreciate you as our representative. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us. I always enjoy going to services. I love it. And the organization you have with your women that also has a special service there. I just love listening to them. They're so inspiring, as well as your wife, of course. She's amazing. So let's come up with a question for you. I want to ask you, what is it that you are doing now with your congregation while you wait for this pandemic to make its way through? What are some of the challenges that you are seeing with your congregation, and how are you helping to feed them spiritually? Can anybody else hear? No?
No.
Oh, we lost him. Did we lose him? We sure did. He'll come back. We will come back. Well, let's look at some of the other questions that the community has sent in. One of those questions was, how are you addressing the spiritual needs of your congregation? Some of you have responded to this. Would anyone like to add specifically on the spiritual needs of your congregation? Maybe something that you're doing that that may be special compared to others.
Well, yeah, let me just break in here. I'm waiting to hear what Pastor Singleton says when he comes back. But as we were hearing everybody else, I reached out on my desk for a prayer that it appears in one of the prayer books that we have. Its title is Prayer Alone is Not Enough. And you were talking about the spiritual dimension. While we certainly encourage prayer, this particular prayer has a number of paragraphs, but one of them says, we can not only pray to you, O God, to end disease, for you've already given us great minds with which to search out cures and healings if we would only use them constructively. And I share that because, it's important to pray, but it's important also to accompany our prayer with the deeds that make sense. And one of those that I would say we've learned in this whole process is that we need to rely on the scientific data and not ignore it, and not think that we can pray that away, that we can overcome that just with, not to disvalue prayer at all, but to put it in perspective. That same prayer by a dear friend of mine, Rabbi Remer, says, we can not only pray to you, God, to end war, because we know that you've made the world in such a way that we must find the path to peace within ourselves and with our neighbors. And I would just remind the people who are participating in this call today to pray, but also to do.
Rabbi Cohn, you have been one of spiritual leaders here in the Inland Empire for so many years. Those comments are extremely important. I think that oftentimes we think, well, we just have to pray about it. And I appreciate that you say that it doesn't discount the power of prayer, because we have all seen prayers answered. We've all seen the miracles, and we will never discount that. But also the need to look at science, the need to look at what the doctors are telling us, what the experts are telling us, so that we do what is best to try to take care of ourselves, our family, our community, and the entire community as a whole.
It looks like our friend Pastor Chuck is back, by the way.
All right, that's the text I just got too. All right, Pastor Chuck Singleton. Let's try it again.
Well, I'm back, but since I'm so late and sideways,
it doesn't matter. Just the fact that you're here is all that matters.
Well, my first thing that I did say, I won't say much, but I do want to thank you for your leadership, both in Sacramento and here locally. And Assembly Member, you have been in and out of our congregations, and we're all grateful for that. Thank you for being part of it and for giving us some guidance and help when we need it with various things. And so that would be the first thing I'd want to say. And then I want to say an amen to Sam Casey, my good friend, and the work that he's doing in leading a number of congregations and in servicing the food insecure. Because the big thing right now is food insecurity. And in our day with McDonald's on every corner and Burger King on the next one, we might really think that everybody's okay. But the reality is there are people that are hungry, and that number of people is growing. At the same time, many of the grocers and outlets that give us food are cutting back on what they're able to deliver. So it's a challenging time, and I agree with you that praying is the first step, but we just may be the answer to our own prayers. That's the key to the whole thing, Assembly Member.
Yes, I appreciated that the comments were made about that. I did want to ask you, one of the questions that was asked by the community is, why does social distancing matter? I would imagine.
I heard.
I would imagine that includes the masks as well. But the question is, why does social distancing matter?
One of the challenges when we have people and we come in for food, and particularly on Tuesdays and Fridays, we have large numbers of people. Some of them are so thankful, grateful for food, that it's the very natural human response to want to respond with a hug. And so we have trained our staff to resist the urge to respond and accept the embarrassment of perhaps having to say to someone, let's not do that. but it's extremely important just listening as we do to those in science. We, as people of faith, we listen to God first, but God also tells us to use wisdom. It's in the 5th of the book of Matthew, when he was asked to jump off the top of the pinnacle, and he wouldn't do it. And with all the miracles we know that he did, he wouldn't jump off the top of the pinnacle. And he said, you don't put God to the test. So there are many people who say, well, I got faith and I'm not going to worry about COVID or whatever else. And the truth of the matter is, if you've ever had the flu, if you've ever had the cold, you can get COVID. And so social distancing is just absolutely essential, and it's boneheaded, really, really boneheaded and stubborn to do anything less than that, and not to wear masks. Those are boneheaded political tropes that have grown up. It's ridiculous to look at the stats of people dying and getting sick and maintain your position that you can hug or not wear a mask.
And is that your hand up?
Yeah, it's my
Singer?
sort of disappearing into the background.
Yes.
I wanted to follow up on a couple of things that my dear colleague, Rabbi Cohn, said before, not only about how praying is sort of the first step, but also what we've learned from this pandemic, which is the horrible disparities in wealth and the disparities in racial privilege. And so I think right now, because at the same time as the pandemic is going on, there's also this incredibly heightened awareness of, Black Lives Matter and racism, systemic racism in our country. And so I think this is something that's really important for us to deal with. I was privileged to be asked to be on a police reform task force in Riverside. And, reform is sort of not really enough. It's really rethinking, what the police represents, which is really kind of a weapon of white supremacy to keep certain people, out of the larger, economy and society. And so I think that's I think that, in terms of the kinds of lessons that we're learning and that we're grappling with right now, I think, really that's part of the spiritual work we have to do is, think about how we want to create a better society. Not to mention that we have also learned something about the environment, because this pandemic is not a result of some fluke. It's, we've kind of invaded the territory of certain animals, and they are now in closer proximity to us, and we got to think about our planet too. And we need to also think about the fact that we now, in addition to understanding how important community and family are, it's also important to think about how we need to not be so busy all the time that we don't have time to reflect on these important questions.
You're right. I think that when at the beginning, people were saying, I want to get back to normal. I want to get back to normal. But now people are saying, I'm not so sure I liked that old normal. Let's go back to something better than what we used to have. So yes, you're absolutely right. I appreciate that. Pastor Singleton, you were saying that, when people get together, that they want to hug, but you can't. Well, when I was talking to Reverend Bronica yesterday, she was saying that, let me look at my notes, alternative encouragements to hugging or holding hands. All right, my dear friend Bronica, Reverend Bronica, you got to tell us.
Yes. Well, thank you again. Definitely, like you were saying, and your question that you had proposed is, how can the community support us as leaders during these uncertain times, and how can they can encourage us? And we need the community to practice patience. It is difficult for leaders to do a daily function that does not operate in a traditional setting today. It's not traditional. So it's we as leaders, we must recreate and adapt to an unknown in space and time. So we need community patience. So we need the community to encourage us as leaders verbally and financially. with some of the projects that take place in order to provide for the community. We need the community to have compassion and grace. When the congregation member dies and a family member dies, as Rabbi Susan Singer stated, it is mentally hard and emotionally hard on the leader. It is expected that the leaders keep going as if nothing took place. So that is where compassion and grace can be given. And the San Bernardino County dashboard read today, as I pulled some of the death tolls with COVID-19, we're at 558. And the confirmed cases is 38,760 cases. So I pulled those numbers this morning just to say that, again, to remind us that the virus is real. And with those numbers going up, we need the community to be more caring and compliant regarding county regulations, as Pastor Chuck Singleton was talking about, being conscious of when your leaders are giving you instructions. Abide by the social distancing guidelines, and do not get offended when leaders are trying to be abiding by the rules with social distancing. Do not take it personal. We need the community not to take regulations personals, because people's lives are at risk. And we would like the community to ask us as leaders what they can do to assist us instead of saying what we are not doing. It is important that we rely on good teaching. So some good teaching that our mothers used to say, our fathers, and I'm almost done. If you have nothing nice to say, rephrase it to a positive, or do not say anything at all. So we would hope as leaders that the community would show more understanding and have the realization that we as leaders have feelings and families as well. And we as leaders appreciate and love the community. We love the community. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't love the community from the heart. And we know, as Brother Hussam stated as well, together we stand and divided we fall. So please continue to support us as leaders during these challenging times.
You know what I love about that, Bronica, is that you say that talking to the community, but I know you also say that to yourself in dealing with every other faith-based leader. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is finding ways just to be merciful with one another, to, as you said, to be patient with one another. Everybody's trying. They're really trying. And Pastor Dane said at the very beginning, and Father Bonifacio, how important it is to feed yourself spiritually, to strengthen yourself spiritually, so that you can then deal with and help the rest of the congregation. I know that I just got a text that we're coming down to the end of our time together. So I would like to offer each of you a minute or so just to share some final thoughts, some words of encouragement, whatever you want to say. And we're going to begin in the same order. We'll go down in the same order as we did at the beginning. I don't know if Father Bonifacio has joined us, so I'm going to call on him last to give him time to finish if he can. But let's begin with Rabbi Hillel Cohn.
In terms of a final statement, I hearken back to the words that were set down in scripture long ago, but words that can be found in the Quran, and they can be found in the Christian scriptures as well. Be strong and of good courage. And I talk not about physical strength, though that's important, good health and taking care of using all the precautions to protect our health, but mental courage too, and mental strength. And that comes from being honest with ourselves as well as being honest with others. And I think so often we are victims of getting trapped in self-delusion and denial when we need to face the realities. And the reality is that we're dealing with a very very dangerous pandemic, but we can overcome it by working together and by following the guidelines.
Thank you. And thank you for always being one of our leaders. I sincerely appreciate you. Not a leader just in faith-based issues, but a leader in our community on all of those issues, whether it's equity, inclusion, racism, anti-racism. You're always there. I sincerely appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Reverend Samuel Casey, New Life Christian Church.
Listen, I'm just going to say ditto, because after the wisdom of the rabbi, there's nothing left to be said. I could sit at his feet for hours and just listen to him dispense. So I would encourage all of us to lean to the wisdom of what Rabbi has just spoken over us. I receive it.
Thank you so much. Boy, that was short. I was giving you more time. But thank you. Thank you for your comments. Rabbi Suzanne Singer from Temple Bethel.
So it's not easy to follow Rabbi Cohn, that's for sure.
All right, I should have had him last.
Yes, you should have.
Rabbi Cohn, from now on here, you're last.
But I would like to quote another person that I admire very much, Ruth Messenger, who for 18 years was the head of the American Jewish World Service and is now their global ambassador. And she said, we cannot resort to the luxury of being overwhelmed. And despair is not a strategy. So despite the fact that there are many, many challenges ahead for all of us in this pandemic, during this very difficult political time, we just have to keep fighting and know that I loved what Tahil said about it's not the light at the end of the tunnel, it's the light that we are right now illuminating through the work that we do together. So that's what we just have to keep doing.
I agree. And I think that with the leaders that we have here, you're illuminating it for so many in our community. I sincerely appreciate you. Reverend Bronica Martindale, New Hope Missionary Baptist Church.
Good, thank you again. I would just like to do a shout out to my church, New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, where my senior pastor is Dr. Michael Andrew Owens as the pastor, and he is providing some of those physical distances. I seen one of our attendees said, instead of us saying social distancing, because we want to be social with one another, let's say physical distancing is better just in order for safety. So I applaud that. But definitely for Sunday services and the Wednesday on Zoom and the radio station, we have that. So to get that information, go to newhopembc.org. And again, I just wanted to say thank you, Assemblymember Reyes, for continuing thinking out of the box, still having the Bridge Conference to be able to bring us as leaders together and to be able to love on the community as you love on the community. And it helps us to stay connected with the constituents ourselves and provide the resources we need for them. So thank you so much. And I'm always honored to participate and be with you.
I'm always honored to have you with us. You make things better. Thank you. Pastor Dane Aaker, Centerpoint Church in Colton.
Thanks again for having me. 3 quick thoughts at the end, and I think this has been part of my job as a faith leader, is to, as a church, abide by the guidelines and encourage people to abide by the guidelines. And we've stayed in touch with the County of San Bernardino. We found that to be our best resource as a church. What can we do? What can we not do? And then telling people, and one of the mottos we used right from the start is, we don't wear a mask out of fear, we wear a mask out of love. We wear it for others. It's not that we're afraid, it's that we want to care about each other. And so that's first thought. Second thought is, for us as a congregation, is to keep our church focused on, in our belief system, our hope on Christ. And that we really got to lift people up and help them see the bigger picture, and that there's hope in the Lord. Third thing, last thing, our church it's a large church, and it's extremely diverse. It's diverse ethnically, it's diverse politically, and there has been so much conflict. We have worked really hard to tell people we have to leave aside our differences and focus on we are sons and daughters of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And that unites us more than our politics, more than our views of any other issue. And I know it just gets real practical, and we've done this a lot, just challenging our people to be careful what you post online. So much of it is inflammatory right now, and it doesn't do any good. And to just remind people, because we've got people all over the board, let's focus on our relationship to our Heavenly Father, and let's not make such a big issue out of the other. Now, for us, that's been an emphasis because we're a diverse church. We want to hang together. And so I'm taking too much time. Thank you again for having me.
That's actually good, because not only are you a diverse church, we are a diverse community.
Yeah.
And whether it's in my district, in the 47th Assembly District, or in our county or in our state, we are diverse. And I like what you said about wearing the mask. Say it again.
We don't wear a mask. We said this right from the start. We got this quote actually from someone else. We don't wear a mask out of fear. We wear it out of love. And somewhere along the line, unfortunately, not wearing a mask became something that proved our bravery or something. And we just had to dispel that. But just real quick, even in our services online, we don't always do it, but we'll take the mask off to lead the service. But a lot of times I have my staff carry their mask on. I just say, just let it be on the screen. Let them see it. Like we're doing this right here in the building when we make this service. We're putting that on as soon as we're done. And, then we practice social distancing. We spaced out our worship leaders. Again, trying to follow the guidelines. The guidelines are pretty clear with the county, and they've been extremely responsive when we call them.
Very good. Thank you so much, Pastor Dane.
Thank you.
Brother Hussam Ayloush.
Again, like everybody else, I want to thank you, Assemblywoman Reyes, for having us be inspired today and hopefully maybe inspire others. I want to thank all the participants, the speakers and the attendees for honoring us with their presence. I would end with a quote from the Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who said, none of you is a true believer until he or she loves for others what he loves or she loves for themselves. And others, meaning their other fellow human beings, their brethren human being. And that is, I would say, building on everything else that was said, I think the strongest way for us to feel relief, feel empowered, feel uplifted, is when we help others. There's a lot of spirituality and a lot of uplift when we give, whether that is volunteering at your church, mosque, synagogue, temple, to help others to deliver food, give a ride to somebody who needs a ride, help, give a virtual hug for somebody. At the end of the day, you're really actually helping yourself. I'm helping myself when I do that. Or adopt a cause bigger than us, because that will help us be distracted away from the negativity of what we're dealing with today. It was said, I think Robert Singer said it, we're dealing with one of the biggest opportunities today to fight racism in our country, and specifically anti-Black racism. If we focus on that, focus on how there's marginalization of immigrants, of refugees, dehumanization of the poor, if we focus on challenging that, it will take our mind away, it will boost us spiritually, and it will give us strength to continue to fight, against COVID-19, against the difficulties we're facing today, and hopefully, we will prevail very soon, God willing.
Thank you. I'm sure that we will prevail. I've got some of the best and wisest of our leaders here on this call. Pastor Chuck Singleton, please, from Loveland Church.
Thank you, Assemblymember Reyes, and I will take the lead of some others who've said I'll be brief. I think of the words of the prophet Jeremiah, who, when he complained to God about his condition and how things weren't going as well for him as for others, and he got an answer in the 12th chapter of Jeremiah in the 5th verse, when he records that God said to him, if you've run with the footmen and that made you weary, what will you do when the horses come? And in my estimation, we've lived in a kind of island of plenty and prosperity in America, and may the Lord allow that to continue. But we're spoiled compared to the rest of the world. And if things happen as they have happened with COVID, what if it gets worse? What are we going to do if things aren't like they are right now? If there's food insecurity that spreads and we can't run down to Vons or Stater Brothers and get what we're accustomed to. If we don't, at the faith level, learn how to come together, and at the faith level, learn how to believe the best and make the most even of the most trying situations at the faith level, now with this, we are in for, in my estimation, some real problems somewhere down the line. It may not be in the next 10 years, it may be, may not. But somewhere this island of plenty and prosperity, if and when it either devolves to the rest of the world, perhaps it'll go the other way and the rest of the world will catch up with American prosperity. That's my hope. But my challenge is that we not be spoiled brats when we talk about normalizing things, but that we recognize how blessed we've been and give thanks for that instead.
Thank you so very much. Beautiful words. Thank you so very much. And now my partner in this interfaith bridge, Tahil Sharma from the United Religions Initiative. Tahil.
There are two things that are sort of coming to mind right now. One is sort of me trying to be prophetic, and the other is me trying to be pragmatic. Our physical distancing should not lead to human catastrophe. It should lead to collective abundance. We have a long way to go, and we have not achieved perfection in human life. That may not ever be a goal, that may not ever be achievable, but we are trying to make the best of this situation, and this is a test. We need to make sure that all forms of suffering are mitigated and removed for all of us, because if one of us suffers, all of us suffers. And I want to always make it very clear that for people of faith and moral conscience, this is going to continue to be a test, because the more we divide among ourselves, the more we will lead to moral decay. But on the pragmatic end, I think we need to be very honest about pursuing whatever justice looks like for each of us as individuals. And for faith leaders particularly, who are struggling with this continuing conversation of when our sanctuaries might open, there is an FAQ that I helped contribute to with the Center for American Progress that brought on faith leaders and epidemiologists to answer 17 questions about even the thought of reconsidering opening your sacred spaces. And I think that's very important for faith leaders and congregations to read, because they have to think about this, not just the simplicity of opening or closing doors, but how many logistical processes you have to go through to think about the impact of opening a sanctuary again and the implications that can have. So I encourage people to take a look at that. I've shared that with folks here who will hopefully share it as a part of the resources. And just know that I continue to stand with you all, not as an accomplice, not as an ally, but as an accomplice for justice.
Thank you so much, Tahil. And Father Bonifacio. All right, I know that
Rabbi Hillel is trying to say something. We can't hear.
All right, Rabbi Hillel.
We can't, he seems to be saying something, but we can't hear him.
Yeah, I want to ask Assemblywoman Reyes if you would do me a favor. And that is, one of the people that has impressed me, and I know we don't want to get into politics, but nationally and then in our area, is Governor Cuomo of New York has impressed me, and so has Governor Newsom. And I would ask you, when you see Governor Newsom, pass along to him my commendation, ours I hope, for his leadership in our state as compared to some of the states in our country that do not have that fine leadership.
Thank you so much for saying that, Rabbi Cohn. Our Governor Newsom has worked so hard, and he feels the pressure of the entire state of California on his shoulders. And I commend him as well. And when we have our one-on-ones and when we have as caucuses with him, you could tell he answers our questions and he plans with us and he works with us. He is trying his absolute best, and he has surrounded himself with wonderful people that will also help him. But I will send back the message from our group. And I want to take this time to thank all of my panelists for agreeing to join me on our third annual bridge. This is so important. It is so important. We knew it from the first time we did this, how important it is to bring our faith-based community to Interfaith and to answer questions from the community. I want to thank the community for all your questions. And I know we weren't able to answer all of the questions. We did our best. But if you have other questions, we would be happy to answer those. And Tahil, I hope that you will send us the answers to those 17 questions. I want to share it with the rest of our panelists. And Reverend Bronica, I hope that you will send over that list of all the resources and any of the rest of you, if you have events that are coming up. I also want to offer from my office, from the 47th Assembly District Office, if any of you want to have a food giveaway, I want you to call our office. We want to partner with you. It is an absolute honor for me to work with Pastor Casey and Father Bonifacio and many of the others, but I offer that to the rest of you. I want to work with you to give back to our community. I also want to invite all of you to our next town hall, which is with our State Superintendent of Public Education, Tony Thurmond. That will be next Tuesday, August 18th. And we are accepting questions. We will have a Spanish language interpreter to translate for those who would like to hear it in Spanish. Again, I want to thank you all. We went over 3 minutes, but I am told that since we started 4 minutes late, I am A-OK. So thank you all. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.